To introduce today's speaker is Doug Rutherford.
All right, who's ready to talk about some football here? All right, we got Coach Karl Dorrell in the house. That's why everyone's here. I'll tell you, Chad, you stole my thunder on that. Best place to be in Boulder on a Friday is here. No doubt, best place to be on a Saturday afternoon of fall when the Buffs are in town is Folsom Field. So, it's said that the pride and tradition of the Colorado Buffaloes is not to be entrusted to the weak and to the timid. And I think we all know that. We've all been at Folsom Field. We've seen them fight shoulder to shoulder, beating Notre Dame for the national championship, back-to-back wins home and away against Nebraska. But then, but still, we've also seen them, kind of down on their luck a little bit, losing that foot race against some of our peers in the Pac-12. And I think it's true that now more than ever, we need a leader that is not the weak and not the timid, someone who's loyal to Colorado, someone who knows the program, someone who's a member of the community. And that person is Karl Dorrell here. And it's a great honor to have him in the house. And hopefully we can all give him a warm welcome. And entering his third year, Pac-12 Coach of the Year 2 years ago, Karl Dorrell.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that reception and that introduction. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here with this distinguished group. My parents, they were part of a Rotary group in San Diego, which is where I grew up. And I remember as a youngster being able to attend some of those things. I was mainly working, helping to serve meals and stuff like that. But it did remind me of my youthful age of some of these young people that are getting ready to study abroad, in terms of going to school. But so happy to be here. This is kind of a fabric of what we're really all about in the community, and what this organization stands for. I know you want to talk about football, and I'm going to talk about football here in a minute, but I also want to share some great things that I think this football team's doing that's very similar, or at least in the same, mindset and viewpoint of what you guys do from a day-to-day basis, and you meet here weekly to discuss, which is what are you going to do better for our community. Our team, for the last couple of years, have responded very, very well whenever we've had an unfortunate circumstance in our community. A couple of years ago, or last year, with the Boulder shooting, over there at the King Soopers, I remember vividly that day because I was at the CU Research Medical Center right here off of Foothills Parkway. I was standing in line getting ready to get my second COVID test, or second COVID shot. And that's where I saw all those police officers going right down the Foothills Parkway, screaming down towards the King Soopers, and no one really knew what was going on. And then obviously we all know what happened. And there's an amazing thing with young people that I think it's sometimes we don't at least talk about and at least give some recognition to is, when we found out about that incident and we found out about Officer Talley and, his situation and how brave he was in being the first respondent to go there, and obviously he lost his life and he had 7 children. Our team rallied around that family. And just to make a long story short, we all stepped up, coaches, players, all of us have really, we put resources together, gift cards, dinner gift cards, toys, what have you, to help support this family. And it was something that was from the bottom of our players' heart. That was something that they wanted to do. And as the head coach of that program, I wanted to make that a fulfillment of them being able to be an impactful influence in a family that's dealing with a difficult circumstance. And along with all the other victims too, we were all a part of the relief funds and donations that we've all done, even the Marshall Fires. The Marshall Fires, which is the next thing that came about, I have a coach on my staff, and his name was Mark Smith, and the great thing about him, he didn't lose any family members of that fire, but he did lose his house. And he lost all of his personal possessions, cars, everything. And he's a new coach. He's from Dallas, Texas, that I've had on my staff for about a year. So you can imagine he and his young family had everything in that home that they owned. So, a number of relief efforts that not only our community that you're a part of have instituted and contributed to, but I know that he's been impacted in a positive way just because of how the Boulder community has reached out to help all the fire victims. There's one other member I got to tell you before I start the discussion about football is her name is Heather Craycraft, and Heather is the executive assistant, and Marty knows Heather, but Heather is the executive assistant for Rick George, who is my boss, the athletic director here in the athletics department. Well, she not only lost her home, along with my coach that was on my staff has lost, but about 3 weeks prior, or after that, she was about to be married this summer, but her fiance passed, within 3 weeks after the Marshall fire. So she's a godsend for all of us. She's a great person that's always smiling, always uplifting, always, very supportive of all of our 16, 17 sports we have in our program. So our hearts were obviously broken with her situation. So she is a very dear member in our athletic department. And all of the sports coaches know her very fondly because obviously she works for our boss, but she's always been someone that's been very, very supportive for all of us, and we wanted to share the same support for her. So we've all dealt with some stress and some difficulties, along the way, and then, I coach football, and it's a very important sport, and it's a very demanding sport, and it's a very, I would say, representative sport of what life is usually like. Has any of you played football before here in this room? Any of you males? Okay. I always felt that, I know there's females that play too, so I do agree with that. But this great game is so unique in a lot of ways. You learn so much from it. You learn a lot about life lessons on the field, particularly at this level and in the professional level, which I was able and fortunate enough to coach. But it's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of adversity, a lot of highs and lows. I mean, things that happen in life, you kind of experience in the moments of a football game. And one thing I know about these young men is that they're starting to tie this game and this appreciation and respect for it. It's a lot higher than it's been, the last 2 years. And I say that because, this team that's right now currently on campus that's going to be your representative for our great university in the fall, they're very impactful young men in a lot of really, really great ways. They want to be great football players. They want to be great students. They want to be great teammates. They want to be great friends and colleagues. They want to do all of those things in a special way. Just like us coaches, we feel the same way. We have a coaching hat, but yet we wear so many hats along with this coaching thing that I do. That the coaching thing doesn't technically define me. It's the other things that I do that define me. What you guys do daily and weekly when you meet is really in my heart of hearts. I'm a head coach that really wants to give my best to our student athletes. It is to provide them every resource they can have to be successful, both on and off the field. And that's our mission statement. If you come on our floor, on the 4th floor of our Champion Center, you'll see that the mission statement for us is just to create a great atmosphere for young student athletes to develop to be the best that they can be, both on and off the field. It's just that simple. And I'm very proud of this team in terms of where they've come from to where we are right now. They're going to be a very inspired, competitive team this fall, and we'll have our best year of playing football so far to date under my tenure this fall. You're going to see a team that's very talented. It's young. Our quarterback positions are always been a concern, given off of last season, going through that the year in 2021. Brendan Lewis, not the same player that he was last year because of that 12 games of starting and playing. He's utilized that to build up a library of knowing what to do and what not to do so much better that he's functioning so much at a higher level than he was, last fall. His competitor, JT Stroud, who's coming off of his knee injury, he is 100% healthy now. So they're ready to battle through that process this summer in terms of who's going to start for us, in the first game against TCU on Friday night. So this team is a team that has a strong brotherhood connection, but a very fierce competitive connection. And that's what all I can ask for as a coach is for the team to lay their hearts and minds and desires and efforts on the field for each other. And usually if they do that collectively in consistency and have a consistency about it, we will win many more games than we did a year ago. So that's the goal of what we plan to do. Now let me brag about this group this year. Can I do that? I know we haven't stepped on the field right now. My win-loss record in 2022 is 0-0. Okay, so right now, as I leave today, it'll still be 0-0. But there are two things that I want to just kind of earmark about how proud I am of these young men, about why they're becoming some great young people. There's just literally last month, we had 2 functions that we did to help people in the community. I'm big into that. Just like I said, my background growing up was being in this type of environment with my parents, down in San Diego. So part of that is still in me about giving back. It's great when you're a young athlete and everybody's, always applauding how good you are and, you're such a great player and all those things. Well, to me, for doing that and getting that type of recognition, it's really important that we reciprocate, that we obviously recognize the people that do support us in our community and that we show that appreciation. So there's 2 events we did in April, just before finals. One event was there's an organization in Broomfield that I'm affiliated with. It's called A Precious Child. And I'm sure some of you know who that is. So it's a great organization that really tries to supplement families and young people from when they're tiny toddlers all the way up through to high school about giving them the support and the materials that they need to have a great scholastic experience. So what I did with that organization a couple of weeks ago was that we have 110 guys on our football team. So we had to split the team up in 2, offense and defense. So the offense went down to the Broomfield facility one afternoon for about an hour and a half, and it really helped out just organizing their warehouse of all the donations and gifts that they receive. They're usually short-staffed with putting things away and getting things organized and putting them in the right, proper place. So we had the offense do it for an hour and a half. We had the defense come the second bus for an hour and a half. So in 3 hours' time, we've collectively gift packaged just under 7,000 packages for young people and families. And we actually, in 3 hours' time, it had the equivalence of 2.5 weeks of labor that those workers who normally volunteer their time there, it would have taken for them to do the work that we did in 3 hours. So they were thank you. and they were very, very appreciative, as you can imagine, us helping them get organized for them to do their jobs even at a higher level. So I was really proud of my young men that did that, but you know what, the more important thing is that they felt even more proud of giving back and helping someone in such a strong cause like a precious child. The second endeavor was a bone marrow registry drive that we had on campus about 2 or 3 days prior to finals. And again, both offense and defense did it in shifts. They stood outside of Balch Hall, Balch Field, which is the field just on the west side of the stadium. And they were soliciting, students, faculty, whoever walked by about the bone marrow registry of Be the Match. And their record, I think it was Mike McIntyre that first started this project when he was here as the head coach. The record was, I think, 427 people signed up for the registry at that time, but my team broke the record of 536 people that signed up for the registry. So, that's kind of a competitive thing, but it was a good thing, and we broke their record. So, again, both of these acts of generosity or acts of service, our players got much more out of it than they were expecting. That was the response that they gave me about, the giving back factor, that didn't think that was so powerful at first, but after going through that experience, how impactful it was for them. They felt like they really helped out someone else, in a time of need. So these young men are growing. They're growing up and starting to understand that there's another world out there other than you playing collegiate athletics. And that's my job as their head coach, is to make sure that these guys understand that in the grand scheme of things, in real life, there's people that are in need. And we don't live in this cocoon like we do, where we just go to school and play football and that's all we do. There's real life circumstances outside of that. And obviously they've come from, a lot of players on our program have come from tough backgrounds in the past. But it's something to know that even though you've had some tough backgrounds in the past that you've experienced, it's something to know that when you're doing something for someone else, how that really impacts you in a positive way. So I'm very, very proud with what this program, not only the football part, but the program itself is starting to represent on our campus. I'm excited about this fall, and the reason why is we had an excellent off-season. Obviously, very challenging season a year ago, going 4-8. Our players came back with a mindset of knowing that they had so much work to do to get better. It started back in January 17th when we first started our off-season training and conditioning. So we trained hard. I saw a lot of body transformations of guys getting bigger and stronger and faster. Usually when you're seeing your body change like that, there's confidence that grows with it. Your chest gets stuck out, right? You feel good about what you look like. So these guys are really starting to buy into the process of training and understanding what that work ethic provides for you in the end. Has anybody ever experienced that the harder you work, the worse you get? Did you put your hand up? To me, it just doesn't make sense, right? And that's something that it's one of those epiphanies for them, was that, wow, I can make this type of, gains in terms of my ability by just working a little bit harder, huh? Well, yeah, this is what happens. The harder you work, usually there's a great return on that investment. So these guys are all starting to realize that right now. So we had a great off-season of training. We went right into spring practice in April, had great spring practice. We had a number of players that we were missing in spring because of, postseason surgeries. They were getting some corrective surgeries done prior for this season, so they missed the spring. But the great majority of the spring guys that were here, which are young players that I'm trying to get them caught up to the older players, that's what the spring is for, is to help close the gap with the bottom of your roster to the top of your roster, and then to help build that competition for some great things to happen this summer. So we felt like that those two processes went really well with our training and with the football that we did in April. They're right now in the month of May, they're all at home. You know, you guys that are you in college now or are you in high school? High school, right? You're in college? Yeah. So you guys know that you're out of school right now. The month of May, and you said, at CU, they're off the month of May. And I don't think any of our guys, there's a couple of guys that are traveling abroad just for vacation purposes, but they'll be back the weekend after Memorial Day to start the summer training. And in my mind, that's the most important time of the season is the summer. Because your team, the success you have over the summer is going to correlate strongly to how you'll play in the fall. So we know that the summer is going to be a big, stepping stone for us to have a great summer, to have a great season. I know you may have some questions, but I'm gonna save some time to answer some of those questions, particularly if there's a particular player you're interested in, things like that. But just in a nutshell, I'll tell you. How many people went to games last year? A good deal of you. Good. The concerns of a year ago, as I did the summary of last season, if I start on defense, I would say defensively, we didn't generate enough pressure on the quarterback. We had 12 sacks the whole season. That was last in the conference. Okay, so we didn't generate enough pressure, and we didn't generate enough takeaways, which are turnovers, for the defense. Now, conversely, on the other side, offensively, there was a whole mess of things that needed to be fixed. But the most important thing I wanted to get done this spring was to improve our passing efficiency with our quarterbacks in our passing game. So we checked that box. And then we started to create a stronger run system of running the ball in the spring. And we were able to check that box off as well about improving on those two particular areas on the offensive side. We didn't generate enough points, and then we didn't stop enough people from the defensive side was really what our issues were last year. I would say defensively, coming out of spring, we have the deepest team I've had in 3 years. We've got a really good defensive front. That's a first group defensive front with veteran players like Terrence Lang and Jalen Sami and Robert Barnes and Joshua Gustav. And so we got some good returning players that are in that first group. But that second group, in my opinion, is almost as equally talented as the first. We didn't have that a year ago. So that's going to help us be better defensively defending opponent offenses. Offensively, we still have a few pieces to add this summer in terms of at the receiver position and at the running back position. Those two positions we feel are very talented, but will be young, and I have no problem with that, with a young, talented group at the skill positions. But I think the more important thing is how much better will we be on the offensive line. And the offensive line has made a huge step of progress with really solidifying, I would say, a strong core of about 7 players that we have in the offensive line. We play with 5, and we have 2 top reserve, but the goal this summer is that maybe through summer and training camp, we can fill in those other 3 spots in the depth chart with the offensive line with good quality and guys that will emerge over the course of the summer. But with that being said, though, I still feel we have a much better team, both from a defensive standpoint in terms of how we're built now, and offensively with our quarterbacks being a year better, a year older, and plus being more competitive at that position is going to allow us to be a much better team come Friday night, September 2nd against TCU. Okay? Can I entertain any questions? Is that something that I can do or no? Okay.
Direct the questions, if that's okay, Coach. Alrighty, so does anybody have a question?
We know that there are a number of our players who have had multiple coaches in their positions. How do you work with them on that?
By talking about it and understanding, that's really one of the biggest issues that our program has dealt with the last 5 years, is there's been a Rolodex of coaches, including head coaches, in this program. And, my goal is to be here for the long haul. I mean, that's the goal. And I feel my formula to get it back to where we're playing at a high level, championship level football, well, it was first taught and learned from, I think, the best coach in this organization, which was Bill McCartney. I was fortunate enough to start my coaching career with him in 1992, and we're trying to bring back that fabric of dedication, commitment, desire, and love for the game that he built at that time. So I feel like we have a really strong foundation for that in terms of building that mystique and that attitude about being a winning program. But I think the challenging thing when talking with young people is that I've had exit meetings or meetings with the players, and sometimes that comes up as, Coach, you're my third head coach in 3 years or the fourth coach in 4 years. Well, we need to stop the bleeding there. I want to be here. I want to be here. This isn't a stepping stone job for me. This is something that I've been here twice before as an assistant, that I believe this program has helped me become who I become today is because of the work that I was able to do when I was here as an assistant. So I feel I owe this program quite a bit. And not only that, I plan on being here a long time to make sure we see it through.
I have always thought the main thing that we need in Colorado is a hand signal. The Gators have theirs, and the Texas has theirs, and the Gigi Mac. What we need in Colorado is the buffalo sign. Now, I'm doing this kind of in a funny manner, but what I'd also like to ask you, though, more seriously.
Or like that.
Yeah.
Because the Longhorn's what? It's
the Longhorn.
What's the Longhorn? Is it?
Longhorns is this.
Right.
I'm saying the buffalo is this.
The thumb and so that's not the hang loose deal.
Well, the Texas one is I love you. So
Okay.
it doesn't matter. Of course.
I like the idea. I do.
I think it would be good, and I present that to every head coach. So I've been in the Rotary Club for a long time.
Really?
No one has ever considered it. So I'm putting it all on you, Carl.
Okay. I'm serious. I do like the idea. Maybe the other guys didn't. I like the idea.
Well, good.
But, let me bring that to our team. Okay, what's our Buffalo signal? I'm going to ask them to see what they come up with. But it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Buffalo. The other question I have is about the image and stuff. I'm worried about that.
Name, image, and likeness?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm worried about bigger schools paying their kids more than we can afford. What do you think? What are your considerations?
Yeah, we're concerned about it as well, but we think, we as in Rick, George, and myself, we talk about this, as you can imagine, almost every day, about how do we deal with name, image, and likeness when you have this reported that this school is doing this, and and vice versa. So, we still feel that it needs to be educationally based. In other words, there's no, Rick and I use the term, there's no pay for play. And that's the challenge that what you're seeing, which is an interpretation of what some schools are reading about, hey, can I just pay this guy X amount of dollars and he comes to our school? Well, the whole goal of name, image, and likeness is you're supposed to be building your brand. And when you're building your brand, you are you're doing things that are commiserate to building your profile of who you see yourself in your 40-year plan, your 40, as in 40-year plan. So we think it should be, educationally based with career planning, with leadership training, with doing community service stuff, which is what this organization does, and what I just explained about what I've done with our team. We feel like it should be earned by doing some level of work. And right now there's an interpretation out there that some schools are just handing over money without any work involved. And that's completely incorrect. That's not how it should be. The NCAA yesterday, Rick and I were talking, they came down on some amendments of the current rules about this NIL that are really going to start to challenge those people who have operated that way about retracting those offers because they're not legal. But the NCAA did open up this bucket because they stepped back a year ago saying that, we're just going to let each state law handle this. That's what they said. But since they said that, and now it's become the mess that it is, now they're getting back involved, and there'll be some regulators in there. But we still believe that it should be educationally based. It should be, you getting some sort of compensation or resource for some level of work to be done. And it might be speaking for companies or being at a luncheon or, making a public appearance, things like that. There's some work involved in NIL, and from our perspective that we're generating with our current student athletes. And we have 50 to 60 NIL deals right now throughout our department, football and basketball and women's basketball and some other sports, of people doing some of these NIL deals already, but they're at a much lower scale. Okay?
We have one last question, and it's coming from Bill online. If you'd like to unmute yourself, please.
Hi, Coach. Thanks for coming to speak with us today. My question is somewhat similar on the NIL issue, and I wanted to ask. You pointed out that a number of the players on the team come from difficult backgrounds. They're kids that probably face some economic challenges, and so the benefits of NIL for them could be significant in terms of their quality of life while they're at school. And so, it seems to me that it's not a simple thing. It's a complicated thing, and it's a hard one to strike a balance correctly on. I'm curious whether your perspective as a coach is that the NIL allowing students to make money, whether it's hindered your work as a coach or actually helped some of your players who are hardworking guys that are essentially in a full-time job playing on your team.
Well, there's definitely, great question. There's definitely some work that needs to be involved with NIL. And most, like you mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of players that that don't come from a lot of resource, in our program. So when they get a chance to earn $500 here or $1,000 here, can you imagine? It sounds like that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. So when you're able to put those types of opportunities in some of our current players that are in from that lower social economic place to where they came from, that's significant money that he's given a chance to, obviously help his experience here on campus. But a lot of our guys actually send the money, like for example, Pell Grants. And this, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's kids that are in our program that have qualified for Pell Grants, and a lot of the ways full Pell, but guess what they do? They send it back home. So that tells you right there about how, they're trying to help out their families. They're on scholarship, but they know they can qualify for a Pell Grant. If they qualify for $4,500 a semester, they're sending most of that money back home to help their families in some of the situations out there. So getting back to the NIL deals, when you get guys that are, that obviously from those types of situations in terms of their experience, and they get a chance to earn, $500, $1,000 along the way, that's huge money for them that they can use as a resource for themselves here at CU. But we still feel, I say we, Rick and we feel that this is something that should be of benefit for our student athletes. It shouldn't be, these 2% deals that you're seeing that are 6-figure or 7-figure deals. Those don't make any sense to me in college sports. Not in college sports. I think that's something when you become a professional, that's what you earn when you become a professional. But that's all going to get, I think, corralled and brought back down a little bit, going over the next 6 or 7 months. But it is for the right reasons. NIL is for the right reasons. We just got to make sure we corral it to be for the reasons that it's supposed to be.
Coach Dorrell, thank you for reminding us this afternoon that CU football is about more than what happens at the greatest place to be on a Saturday afternoon in Boulder County. And on a personal note, I have admired the way you and your team have persevered, because since you came here, we've had COVID. Now we have the NIL issues to deal with, and I hope that you and the team continue to persevere through that and come out and go to a bowl game next fall. Rotary knows something about perseverance too, because we have been partnering with the WHO, the CDC, and the Gates Foundation to eradicate polio since 1985. We're this close. And in your honor, we are going to donate 100 doses of polio vaccine to the Polio Plus End Polio campaign that we've continue to persevere on. Thank you again for being here.
Well, thank you for that generous offer. Thank you. It was my pleasure to be here. It really was. And like I said, it just brought me back to when I was a younger, college, high school level kid. And, again, these types of opportunities really impact you differently when you're that age. We don't realize it, really when we're much older, how important these issues and things that we deal with in life. Sometimes young people feel like they're so invincible. I'm not saying that you guys do that, but sometimes the reality is that we're all going to be much better off if we stop thinking about ourselves and think about others. So, thank you.